We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome to another edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast. Alongside Israel Gutierrez, I'm Jorge Sedano. And we're going to get into a lot of different discussions today. Obviously, Steph Curry and his big game and how that heats up the MVP race. Tons of stuff as we've got some big games here this weekend in regards to seeding. That's certainly something to look into. But before we get into that, Wednesday, we had a discussion here on the NBA Lockdown podcast about the situation with Chris Copeland and the Atlanta Hawks at 1-0 Club in Chelsea in New York City. And during that discussion, my point with Amin was saying basically that he felt that athletes need to know better about being out at certain times and whatnot. And my point was we can't be victim blaming here. And Chris Copeland, I felt like, was being victim blamed. Like, hey, why did you go out and get stabbed? Like that was his fault. And in that particular discussion, one of the aspects I brought up when I was talking about athletes go out all the time, they go out and we never hear about it. They perform great. And in some cases, they perform really great. And I told the story about Allen Iverson, where I had seen him and he had gone out and played great the next night. And in that particular story, there were some inaccuracies. And it was pointed out to me by the guys at Deadspin who heard it from a listener, and they were right. Basically, I mentioned that he had played in a Sunday afternoon primetime game in Miami. That was inaccurate. And that he scored 50 points, and that was certainly exaggerated and inaccurate as well. So basically, I got some specifics and details wrong, and I just want to apologize for that. It was a story that I was trying to recall from 14, 15 years ago. And again, the content and the context and the real focus was to discuss what had happened with the Pacers and Hawks and how my feeling continues to be that we shouldn't be blaming the victims here, and that athletes, young people, especially with money, they're going to go out and they're going to do things, and especially if they're in cities where they can go out and party, they're going to do that, and it doesn't usually affect their performance in any other way. That particular situation was an outlier situation. So I just want to apologize to you, the audience, because I pride myself on being accurate in general. Like I don't go out there and try to make up stuff and do anything like that. My reputation as a talk show host is one that's pretty pristine for the most part, especially when it comes to being informed and giving my opinions based on facts and whatnot. So I just want to apologize to you guys, the audience, because it was wrong on my part to get the specifics and the details of that story wrong when I was trying to recall the story. So it's not fair to you, and I just wanted to apologize to you guys. So, all right, let's move on to the stuff that's transpired here. We got a lot of stuff to get into, like Derrick Rose, but I want to start with Steph Curry, and he was balling last night, 45 and 10 for Steph. And, this is a guy that, he's doing all kinds of things. He should be the lead candidate for MVP, in my opinion. I know James Harden's in the conversation. I know LeBron's in the conversation, especially if you ask him. Russell Westbrook is probably fading here a bit, and even Anthony Davis, I think, has some shot potentially of being in the top three. I don't think he's going to win it by any stretch, but he could get a third-place vote or a couple third-place votes in this equation. But not only is Steph Curry the best player on the best team, but he's setting all kinds of records, too. Here it is, Steph Curry.
Bogut comes down with the rebound. Unloads to Curry in front court. Nonchalantly off the screen, triggers a three, and got it! Curry has set the NBA record, 273 threes made in a season, rewriting his own mark in the 2012-13 season.
Kevin Calabro on ESPN Radio, and so is there a conversation here for anyone else? I guess there is a conversation, but who's your guy? Because I'm at this point, I've been flip-flopping forever on this, but I'm going with Steph.
I love how Kevin Calabro was like nonchalantly steps into a three. Those first few threes from Steph in that first quarter were so nonchalant. It looked so easy. And I love watching him play. But my vote is still going to James Harden by the thinnest of margins. And I do have a vote. And I just feel like, Steph's got more to work with. Steph's got better teammates. Steph is awesome. But in terms of what he's supposed to do for his team to succeed, I think James Harden has to do more, and he has to do it every single night, it seems like. I mean, just look at the last 5 games for both of these guys, okay? Steph only averaging 32 minutes a game. And people argue, well, what would he do if he had to play all the fourth quarters? Well, my point isn't what would he have to do. My point is, what is James Harden doing? Because he does have to play those minutes, all right? So the last 5 games, Harden's at about 37, 38 a game. Steph's at about 32. But James is dropping 22, 41, 6, and 6. And by the way, that 22, 4, and 4 was at San Antonio in his last game, and San Antonio's playing phenomenal basketball, so it's hard to argue. It's hard to blame him for having a quote-unquote bad game, which for him is 22, 4, and 4. He had 41, 6, and 6 against Oklahoma City, 24, 6, and 4 against Dallas, at Dallas, 51, 6, and 8 against Sacramento, and 31, 5, and 5 in a loss at Toronto. Steph's last 5 games, they're okay. He's got the 45, which was huge last night, 45 and 10, 25, 24, 11 in a win at Dallas where he didn't have to do much at all, 28. So to me, not only has James had to carry more of the weight all season long and is performing and only missed a game via suspension, but he's turning it on as the season goes even further. I mean, in March, he averaged 28.3 points a game, 7 assists, 5.5 rebounds. That was his best month since since December. And then so far this month, he's just been on fire with, like I mentioned, the 40-point game, the 50-point game. I understand where people are going. And if you want to look at the advanced numbers, by the way, PER, whatever, Steph's better by a point. But real plus-minus, James Harden's up there. I think past him recently. It might have changed again, but it was razor thin, the margin. You could go to any stat and find probably a good number that help out James Harden's case too. But to me, especially now, when you see the way I know it's only a few games left, but see how he plays without Monty Eunice on top of everybody else that he hasn't had as the year goes along. I don't want to hold Steph Curry's teammates against him or the quality of his team against him. But when you've got this razor thin a margin, I'm just leaning toward James Harden. And it's not like James Harden's the 8th seed, all right? They're looking at the number 2 seed if, things fall well for them. Right now they're tied with Memphis for that 2 seed, and you got San Antonio, breathing down everybody's throats. But, my vote still goes for Harden as much as, you asked me which one I want to watch play. I'm picking, Steph 10 games out of 10. But in terms of what they've done this year, my vote still goes to Harden.
Yeah, I just think breaking the all-time NBA single-season record for threes is.
Oh, he did that 2 years ago. Deal. It was nowhere near the MVP.
Right.
So I don't know.
I think him breaking his own record, though, is pretty damn impressive.
Hey,
is what
it's
I'm
fantastic.
saying.
It's fantastic. I mean, obviously, Houston. James Harden has another way of approaching his scoring, and that's getting to the foul line very often. And again, I've said this before, like anybody who holds it against him, that he gets a lot of his points at the foul line, just doesn't understand that's
silly.
perfectly fair. Like that's fair game. Like if you can't be stopped, you go to the foul line.
But you know as well as I do that sometimes these MVP awards can be a little bit of a lifetime achievement award kind of thing, okay? And he now has 3 of the 5 best three-point shooting seasons in the history of the league, okay? In a year where he's the best player on the best team, I just think all that stuff culminates in him being the MVP.
If it's close, who's the guy you're having more fun watching? And that's Steph Curry. And I think that's a bad
absolutely.
Argument.
Aesthetically pleasing, he's far more aesthetically pleasing because he makes all these crazy shots that should never go in. You're thinking, like, how the hell did that go in? And even the shot he missed the other day against New Orleans, that was a crazy shot, completely off balance. It was in and out. And you're like, he almost won it. Yeah, well, whatever. It's the NBA. Nobody really travels anymore. So that's the thing. Like, I just feel like best player, best team, aesthetics, breaking his own record, a culmination of just a really good career thus far. I think all that stuff factors in, and that's why I think he's going to win it. Now, I agree with you that James Harden is absolutely in the conversation, and that James Harden, if he won it, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's going to be, as you said, one of the slimmest margins we've seen in a while, at least I think. And it's going to be between those 2 guys. The rest of the guys, I mean, Russell Westbrook has now kind of tailed off a little bit here. His percentages aren't what they used to be. And, you know,
well,
I know
to
he's got
me,
a gazillion
him
triple-
and Russell Westbrook and LeBron all suffer from one thing, and they're automatically second tier because it's close.
Games
but
played?
They're automatically second tier, yeah, because they haven't played more than what they both missed double-figure games, and that's an eighth or more of the season. That's significant to me. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
a tenth.
yeah.
It's an eighth or more of the season, and that's pretty significant to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, you know, look, if Harden won, would I be surprised? No. But I do think it's possible.
Let me ask you this. You saw the Players' Choice. Like, they have their own awards. They, assuming, you know, there's a good turnout, who do you think wins on the players' vote, James or Steph?
That's a good
Not
question.
that that's the end-all, be-all, but...
No. I feel like, I do want to get into the Players' Choice Awards in a second, too, by the way. I feel like this is like the People's Choice Awards, you know? Like, all of a sudden, like, hey,
where the
this is
fans
cool.
decide.
But what does it really mean? I kind of wish I'll get to that in a second. But who would win? I still think it'd be Steph, man. Best player, best team. I think players think that way, too, you know?
I think the players will probably hold it against Steph that his team is so good, that his teammates are so good, and they will prop up James. I do, because I don't know what it is. I just feel like there's a little bit of he wouldn't be doing that on his own. Or if he were in James Harden's shoes, if he were leading the Houston Rockets, a banged-up Houston Rockets team, would Steph have been able to do what James Harden's doing? I don't think so, because he's not as physical. He wouldn't be able to deal with the pounding that James Harden deals with, and he would probably slip off, and his shooting would probably, suffer as a result. And it's all hypothetical. We don't know if that's the case. And again, look, you're talking to the biggest Steph Curry fan. You know this as much as anybody else. I've been a fan of Steph since Davidson. Like, I love this kid, and I wanted him to be great, and I love the Warriors, and I love watching him play. Going back to Run TMC, they've been my favorite team in the league.
Warriors!
But I just feel like James, by the slimmest of margin, is the MVP. And do I think he's going to win? Nope. I think Steph's going to win. And I don't think anybody's going to complain about it other than James Harden. But I don't know if James can put together another season like this, in large part because you don't know if he's going to have another season where, his teammates are going down left and right. Patrick Beverley among them. Dwight Howard among them. And, Trevor Ariza not exactly having a fantastic season. Who is the Rockets' second-best player when Dwight Howard's not playing? We don't even know.
Yeah, it's Ariza, I guess. Yeah, probably.
Probably. So that's why I'm going with James. But, again, I think Steph's going to win, and I don't have, a complaint about that.
Let me ask you this. Do you care? Now, it's funny because you at one time were a college football guy, and you covered the sport pretty thoroughly.
I was
and
an AP voter for a couple of years.
Right? You were an AP voter, right? You got all the swag for Heisman and all that stuff. Do you like that the Rockets are kind of campaigning for James Harden?
Oh, that stuff doesn't matter to me. To be honest, like these days it goes straight in the trash. So some of these teams probably...
Well, wait a second. I don't think it goes straight in the trash. It all depends on what kind of stuff they're sending you. You know what I mean? Like,
listen, I don't
know about you.
I got one. It looks like an easy button, right, from those commercials. And
from the Staples commercials.
Yeah, and it's for Lou Williams, I think, for Six Man. And it plays some sort of song, which is a cool little beat real quick. And I kind of play it every once in a while. That one's still in the kitchen. Like, it's not in the trash. Just whenever I'm feeling happy, I'll just press it and dance for like 10 seconds. But it was funny because what's the delivery people? Not UPS, but the FedEx guy came over and, I had to sign for it, which is ridiculous. It's the first one I've ever had to sign for. And then he goes, I think it's a phone because it keeps making noise. And I was like, I didn't order a phone. Like, I have no idea what this is. Right. But, I opened it up and it's Lou Williams. But all that stuff, like last year, they sent, I still have this one for Dwight Howard. They sent like a legit briefcase with all this, they had the Daily Planet because it's obviously Clark Kent Superman stuff. And they had a cape and the glasses. And then for James Harden, it was like a beard trimming kit or a beard, I don't know, whatever it was. I don't have a beard. But, and all that stuff is funny to me. I don't, for 1 second, hold it against them for promoting. I think it's all good and fun. Like, I think it's hilarious. And, it's like Kevin Love's video
I like it.
when the Minnesota Timberwolves went over. I think it's all in good fun.
Yeah, I like it. I'm just curious. Maybe I asked you because, again, you've dealt with that, having been a guy who covered college football for a long time, too. Along with the NBA, that you're kind of used to that. You've gotten some of that stuff and that swag for a while. But I don't throw it all away. I keep some of it. Like you never know when you're going to need St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail sauce. I got that from Indiana one year. Recently, actually,
really?
from the Final Four. The Final Four people just sent me that. So, I keep it around. You never know when you want a little cocktail sauce for your shrimp.
Speaking of shrimp, Did I go play the Lou Williams thing? I'm going to play it. See if
That'd be funny, yes. Is it around? Like, can we hear it?
It is right here. Let's see if you can hear this.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I like it. Can you get closer or no?
I mean, it's up to the mic. Hang on.
I like that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it gets me grooving, right? If I'm right before I leave the house or something, I just hit the button, throw a little dance in there, and I'm good.
I want one of those now. I'm going to go to your house and steal that thing.
Nope. You could ask the Raptors. I'm sure they'll give you one. But
maybe they still have some, right?
This other game, since LeBron, what did LeBron say? He chose himself for MVP, which is fine.
Yes.
But Cleveland, now all of a sudden, like, people were afraid that, not afraid, people in Miami certainly were, that LeBron wasn't going to play against Boston, therefore giving Boston the easier road to get in that playoff spot. It says LeBron is going to play tonight against Boston, but what's more important to me is you look up and you see Chicago, and last night Chicago came back from 19 points down against Miami. It was a typical game for Miami because, hey, they had some offense and they think it's going to come easy, and then all of a sudden the offense shuts down and there's nothing anyone can do, it seems like. But I thought Derrick Rose looked okay, and it was his second game back. It was the second night of a back-to-back, and I thought, for the most part, his jumpers, because Reggie Miller was talking about, he's settling for jumpers. They were all like 15-footers. It wasn't like he was settling for three-pointers. So for the most part, they were mid-range jump shots. He did get to the basket some, and I thought, that offense was performing at its best in that third quarter when Derrick Rose was out there, and it wasn't. The offense wasn't great with him, but he looked good at times, and he was only 5 for 15 for 12 points. But you could tell they kind of felt like they're like, look, you're only going to play about 20 minutes. Just go ahead and get into a rhythm. Do what you can for those 20 minutes, win or loss after that. So I thought Derrick looked good, or good enough to where you can say, hey, if they face Cleveland in the second round or Atlanta in the second round, that they could be still a contender.
Yeah, look, he showed some flashes. He showed some flashes in the first game, I thought, against Orlando, specifically in those first 5 minutes, and then he tailed off some. But in the Miami game, he had a couple of bursts, and he looked pretty good. And look, he's going to be rusty. It's obvious. That's just going to happen. You can't just jump back into that sport and think you're going to be okay right out of the gate. Like, that doesn't happen with the type of athletes that play in that particular sport. Here's Tom Thibodeau yesterday on Derrick Rose's performance.
He's still finding his rhythm. It's not going to happen overnight. It was an improvement from last night, and that's all we want him to concentrate on.
Derrick wants to play more minutes.
Yeah.
And, we all know how much, how fragile he was or how delicate he handled his knee after the ACL and maybe even after the first meniscus. But he wants to be aggressive, and that just shows – or he wants to play more minutes, and that just shows you that he does feel pretty good, which is a great sign for Chicago.
Yeah, I also want to give another mea culpa here, considering, that's just kind of like the theme of the show potentially today. I want to give a mea culpa to Tom Thibodeau because, Tibbs, I said yesterday on Cowherd's show when I was filling in that I didn't get why he was playing him in a back-to-back situation, that he should have just played him in Miami. And obviously I'm wrong and you were right, and that's why you're an NBA head coach and I'm just some gas bag here on a podcast.
Well, I don't think I was a right or wrong there. I mean, I just think at this point with Derrick Rose, you just say, look, we've handled it where we've been overly cautious and it didn't really work out great. And here we are, we're in a different situation, and he seems fine. So unless he or the doctors tell us differently, we're just going to go ahead and play him. And I think that's fine. I think that's a fine approach because, again, you've seen the other direction. You've seen the other approach. It didn't necessarily work. And now, as long as you know he's not going to get hurt any worse, then you play him. And you have to know now because you can't make those type – you can't, have those type of experiments during a playoff series where you're like, okay, let's see if Derrick can give us 20 minutes. Oh, no, there's 2 misses. We got to pull him now. It's 2/10 of a situation to not know going into the playoffs, so you kind of have to fast-track this and play him as much as possible now.
Do you think the Heat are done? Because I think they're pretty much done here.
I don't know. With LeBron playing against Boston, maybe even in both, who knows? I think Boston – here's the thing. I don't think that they're done, but on the same token, I have zero confidence they can win their last 3 games, like all 3 of them. They could beat Toronto at home. They could beat Orlando at home. Or they could lose both of them. And, they could beat at the Sixers. They can win at the Sixers. But they lost to the Sixers after holding a 23-point lead at home earlier this year. So it's just hard. It's hard to predict any sort of consistency with Miami. So if they can win their last 3 games, I do think because they hold a tiebreaker against Brooklyn and Boston that they can get in. I think Indiana's probably going to lose a couple. And so, I think they can get in. But again, can they be consistent over even a 3-game stretch when their level of consistency all year long has been nothing since the first 2 weeks of the season? And then once they get there, can they even put together a full quality game so they can get a win against either the Hawks or the Cavs? And that's going to be even tougher. So, I know there's some people in Miami that want that top 10 protected pick. And if they lose these last 3 games, they have a heck of a lot better chance of securing that pick and possibly even getting a top 3 pick if all the ping pong balls bounce in the right direction. But it's just tough. And it would be so much of a letdown for that franchise, for that team to not make the playoffs after the last 4 years and after what they think they had recovered from losing LeBron James. But like I said one time, the curse of LeBron James is very strong. And this team has been cursed all season long with injuries, and there's not a whole lot you can say about that. So it was out of their control for the most part if they don't make the playoffs, and they can look at next year with the roster that they potentially have and think, hey, we can recover just 1 year later.
I think they're better off getting the draft pick because I think even if they're at 9 or even 10, there's good enough players in this draft that you can find a rotation player.
Yeah, listen, I saw a mock draft that had Willie Cauley-Stein at number 10.
Correct.
And I know the Heat have Hassan Whiteside and Chris Bosh and Josh McRoberts. But they wouldn't. Pat Riley wouldn't pass up on an active body like Willie Cauley-Stein. Now maybe he gets picked before that. But I mean, you're talking about 7 guys off that Kentucky team alone that seem like NBA players in some respects. So you can get somebody.
And Willie Cauley-Stein to me would be more like a replace. Willie Cauley-Stein would be more like a replacement to me for Birdman, who's getting up in age at this stage. So and look, if they get 9, like I've seen mock drafts where Stanley Johnson is at 9. I think Stanley Johnson has Artest type qualities. I'm not saying he's Ron Artest, but he's got those type of qualities, even Kawhi type qualities. So he's already a big body.
I heard the Kawhi comparison to Justice Winslow, which is probably a bit strong, but he's built similarly, and you just don't know if he can be the type of personality and type of defender that Kawhi Leonard is. But no, but the scary part if you're Miami is even if you don't make the playoffs, even if you lose every single game here on out, the last 3 games, you could still also fall in that 11 to 14 range.
And have to
never
give the
know.
pick
Like you
the
can
Sixers.
it could be lose. So, knowing this organization, they're not trying to lose a game. So, gun to my head, had to choose whether they win all 3 games or lose all 3 games. I'm choosing that they win all 3 games. But if they lose this next one to Toronto, all of a sudden they're just probably, packing it in.
You should just shut Dwayne down at that point.
As soon as they're mathematically eliminated, which very well could be because there's 3 games and there'll be 2 spots, 2 games out. I absolutely shut him down and anybody else. I mean, even Goran Dragic has been dealing with back pain and stuff like that.
Right. We were just talking about the draft. So what do you make of those 7 guys? You mentioned the Kentucky guys. Like, is Towns to you the overall pick? Like, is he the guy, or do you still think that you'd take Okafor if you had the opportunity?
Well, I had leaned toward Karl Anthony Towns over Okafor. I mean, they're both so young, and they have both so much more developing to do. And if you want to hold Jahlil Okafor's defense against him at the moment, like right now when he's 19 years old, I think you're being a little harsh. But it is a deficiency right now. It doesn't seem like he moves his feet especially well defensively, which is funny because he's got great footwork on the offensive end. But he's bouncy, which is on a big man like that's if you can get post skills, good feet, and athleticism. I mean, that's it. Like, that's what you need out of your big man, especially offensively. But Karl Anthony Towns is, he's a prototype, I think. And, he's defensively, he looks longer. I don't know if he is or isn't, but he looks longer and can probably be a more solid defender. I think he's just money in the post. He's very calm, collected in there. Of those 7 guys, I think Trey Lyles is going to be interesting. He's a 6'10" guy that can handle. He's got a lot of versatility. Booker is essentially a shooter. I don't know what else he's going to turn into, but he's NBA-level shooter right now. And the Harrison twins, I think, are probably the biggest question mark in the league. Like, what are they exactly? Because even at the college level with Kentucky, they were solid but not spectacular. They were clutch but not filling up the stat sheet. They were unselfish for the most part, but then there were times where they were, like basically that game they lost against Wisconsin, trying too hard. So you don't know what you're going to get out of them. I think those are the 2 biggest question marks. But, I mean, we got Booker, Cauley-Stein, Towns, Harrison. Who am I missing?
Johnson, Dakari Johnson.
Dakari Johnson, I think, will have a long career in the NBA. I just don't know if it'll be regular minutes. I just don't know if he can develop into too much.
Sure.
He's
like a late
solid,
first-round guy
down there.
Yeah, he's a late first-round guy. I mean, Kaminsky, do you think Kaminsky's a lottery pick?
I do. I just think it's hard to ignore those skills. It's not like he's entirely unathletic. It's hard to ignore those skills, the versatility. I mean, the way the game is going these days, where if you have a big that can shoot from the outside, that becomes, crucial to the way you can build your offense and some spacing and everything else. And I think, one of the most important things, and we talked about this on a podcast one time with Kevin Arnovitz, is this becoming kind of a Wonderlic league, meaning basketball IQ? How important is that? And where do you prioritize that when you throw it into comparing with athleticism and shooting ability and everything else? And I think it's pretty high up there. I think if you look at the Warriors, for example, which we did, defensively in particular, they've got guys on that team with enormously high basketball IQs, which makes their defense so good, even if you look at the roster and don't say it's an imposing-looking defense, but it is when they actually play because they're so smart. And I think Frank Kaminsky has that. I think you can put him in the NBA right now after his college experience and with his skill set, and he can produce for you. And he's not the type of personality that's going to require statistics to be happy about his production, but he can also, give you a 20-10 night, and you might not even notice it sometimes. And just like that game, just like a couple of games in the tournament, he ends with 20-10, and you're just thinking, oh, okay. I mean, that must have been pretty efficient because it didn't seem like he took over the game at any single point. So I think he's up there, definitely a lottery pick.
I've had this discussion recently with our boy Ethan Skolnick for Bleacher, who was a national columnist for Bleacher Report and Turner Sports. And he and I agree that it just, and maybe it's just watching him, like he just looks slow to me. And I think on defense eventually, Kaminsky, and eventually that becomes a problem in this league when more and more teams are moving the ball rapidly around the court from strong side to weak side. And I just feel like it's going to be hard potentially to hide him on defense. And getting back to Okafor, my thoughts are like that too, to some extent. Like I was having this conversation with Amin, I think, on Wednesday, actually it was yesterday when I was in for Cowherd and on radio. And he, I just think that Okafor, at least right now, could be a liability even on defense, specifically on the pick and roll. Like I think like that could be a problem. And that's not to say he can't get better. But I just think right now that becomes a problem. He is a bona fide NBA scorer right now, and I think that Kaminsky will be able to score too. But I worry about those type of guys on defense, at least initially.
Well, listen, I think if you drop any 19-year-old who hasn't played a lick of NBA into the NBA right now, and he's going to be a liability defensively for the most part.
Really? Because I don't think Towns is. I think Towns is NBA ready defensively right now. Yeah. I think Stanley Johnson is NBA defensively ready right now. I think there are a couple of guys that are.
There are a couple of guys that project to being very good defensively. But right now, Like, their first year is going to be problematic. I mean, rookies – and you could argue it maybe it's because they don't get the respect from the refs, or that on the other side they get attacked very often because the vets, the guys that are just all-star level players, they see a rookie on the other side and they're going to go at him more so than they would another established veteran. So they're going to have a hard time defensively regardless. You've got to fight through that. With Kaminsky seeming slow, I mean, look, I can agree with that in a sense defensively, but again, if you've got a guy that has a high basketball IQ and is put in the right system, you might not notice, or it could be hidden.
You can hide
well.
him. Here's what you're saying.
Well, look at last year to this year with Steph Curry. Steph Curry was hidden all year long last year by Mark Jackson, and now he's not. Why? Is he looking like a fantastic defender? Well, I'm sure he's gotten better at it, but also he's surrounded by great defenders, and again, basketball IQ for Steph through the roof. So you can make up for it in different ways. You don't have to have the physical skill set of Kawhi Leonard to be a capable defender in the league, and that's all you're asking for with a guy like Frank Kaminsky. You want him to rebound, you want him to score for you, and just be a capable defender. You're not asking him to be all defense.
Speaking of defenders, and we'll end on this note, and it's interesting because we obviously started talking about this sort of. Thabo Sefolosha is out for the season, okay? How does that affect what you think the Hawks can do? I know Millsap's a little dinged up, but he should be back here before the season is out and get a few games in before the postseason. But when you see the Thabo injury specifically, how does that make you feel about Atlanta's defensive issues?
Not great.
Or potential issues, let's say.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Nobody's going to say in their right mind, oh, Tabo's out, like the Hawks are in trouble.
Right.
But in terms of, defensively, a 3-and-D guy, he's not the greatest three-point shooter ever, but, shooting in the low 30s this year. But defensively is, always going to be there for you. And, if you're facing a LeBron James, let's say in the conference finals, you probably want to have a guy like Sefolosha available to you. And if that's not, that's not available to you, that's going to be a problem. But, for the most part, they've played without him some already. And, let's just talk about how we don't have to talk about it, but it's very much unfortunate that, this happened to him in a situation like this. But I don't know if it's, it's more on Damari Carroll. That's fine. Like, I trust Damari Carroll these days. Like, he's become a really reliable player. Yeah, shooting 40% from three and playing strong defense and seemingly can play 48 minutes. Doesn't seem to fatigue very much, at least in the games that I've seen. So I'm not going to knock them down a peg, but I would still have Cleveland beating this team even with Sefolosha healthy. But, it's a bit of a challenge for this team to lose a guy. They were kind of like Kentucky for a while, where they had the blue team and the white team. It's five starters and 5 bench players, and they had such a system going. But no, I think they'll survive.
Yeah, obviously the Millsap injury is something we have to keep an eye on, and shoulder injuries. We've seen them derail guys in the past. We were talking about Dwayne Wade earlier. Dwayne Wade has had a litany of injuries, but there was the shoulder injury. He tried to play through a torn labrum a couple years ago. I know Lamar Odom at times in his career in the postseason has dealt with that type of injury. A lot of guys have dealt with, and I'm not saying Millsap has a torn labrum. I'm just saying that Millsap dealing with shoulder injuries can be a problem in this league because you're bumping into guys at fast speeds and whatnot and changing directions, and there's so much bumping going on between these guys during while they're playing a game that it could become troublesome. So it's something to keep an eye on. And he, to me, has been their best offensive player this year, and that's not a shot at Al Horford. I just think that Paul Millsap has been the guy for them this year. So we'll see how obviously Millsap deals with that injury. But one last thing, I lied. One last thing. The Players' Choice Awards. We kind of touched on it for a second when we were talking about Harden and Curry and the MVP. Here's the thing: here's my only thing with this. I just wish that Michelle Roberts and the NBA and the Players Association and the media could find some common ground. And I'll give you the example. In the NFL, I don't know if they still do it, but I know for a long time the Pro Bowl voting was a third players, a third coaches, and a third fans. And I think that's a good balance. And I think that maybe that's what we should do here when it comes to these awards, these postseason awards in the NBA. It can be a third players, a third coaches and GMs, and a third media, and make it just seem, to me, that just seems like the smartest thing that you can do.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of these Players' Choice Awards. Here, these guys' jobs, of course, is to play basketball, and of course they know the players that they're playing against. They know who gives them trouble. They know who's a good defensive player, even if it's not stat related. They know who's a good offensive player, even if they're if they're stats we can't see or things they do that statistics don't show. but their job is not to watch the other games. In fact, on the nights that they play, how often do these players even get to watch a minute of other teams play? So you can only guarantee that they see all these players a handful of times, 2, 3, maybe 4 times a season. And it is literally our job, a lot of us, not everyone, because, for example, play-by-play guys, television play-by-play guys, they have to watch their team's games all the time, and maybe they don't watch as many. But for a lot of us, it is our jobs to watch as much as possible, to study this, and to look through it. Do we all do a fantastic job of doing it? Nope. Do some of us fall for narrative over actual performance? Yep. But for the most part, in terms of a group of people that you can put this responsibility on, I think it's perfectly fair to put it on the media as opposed to the fans or the players. And John Wall had an interesting comment today. He said he's not going to be voting in these Players' Choice Awards. For one, he doesn't think the players should have a choice, in large part because he doesn't think they can be objective. Because guys are not going to want certain guys to get credit for stuff. Guys who just flat out don't like somebody else are not going to vote for that person. It's going to be less impartial than a media vote would be. And I credit John Wall for saying that. It's kind of going against the grain. All these players like, we want to say. John Wall's like, we're just players, man. We don't need to do all that. And to be perfectly honest, we might be quite biased, more so than the media, who, even though we all have our biases, we are literally taught to not be biased. I remember I was in college, and it was so annoying because I started working for the student paper. It's like, what, I can't cheer for the Gators now? So I had to wait till I graduated until I could start cheering for the Gators again. And it actually helps you become, cover whatever, whether you like the team or not, at an arm's distance and really be objective. So, no offense to the players, but I have a feeling that Players' Choice Award thing is going to end up being a little bit of a joke. But, I've been wrong before.
All right. I guess we'll wait and see. I wonder where it's going to air. I guess NBA TV would be like the spot, right? Like, that would make the most sense.
There's an obvious option.
All right. So I guess we'll see if it does air on NBA TV. Coming up next, our man Amin Elhassan goes one-on-one with Wale. That's coming up next here on the NBA Lockdown Podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
One-on-one.
Welcome back to NBA Lockdown. I'm one-on-one with none other than DC's own Wale. What's up, brother?
What's good?
How's it going? So you are a big basketball fan. This is a basketball podcast, so I got to start straight off the top with hoops. You're at a lot of Wizards games, but the number one question I got on Twitter, everyone wants to ask, are you still beefing with the announcer from the Toronto Raptors, Matt Devlin?
No, not at all. I don't even know why anybody asked that. That was like a long time ago. It was never really a beef anyways. But, that's the negative stuff travels way faster than the positive stuff. So,
but see, I don't think it's negative though. To me, I like that you have a passion about the game, that you're not like one of these celebs that just shows up because it's somewhere to be. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of people who go to basketball games to say, I was sitting courtside, and to my left was Danny DeVito, and to my right was, Sandra Bullock. And that's the only reason why they go to games. And you are actually, you're in it. You are a big fan of the Washington Wizards, correct?
Yeah, big fan.
I got to ask you about this. I don't know the origin of this. I know you've always made Seinfeld references. The new album, the album About Nothing, obviously is a nod to Seinfeld being a show about nothing. But how did that relationship start between you and Jerry Seinfeld?
We had a relationship with Jerry for like 7 years, and, he's always been a good friend of mine. And I knew when I got to a certain place in my career that I wanted to, do a collaboration with him. And, now was the best time because I got myself to a level of notoriety where it makes sense to do it, and he was all for it.
Hey, but how does that, that'd be like me hitting up Eddie Murphy and say, hey, man, let's do something right now. How does that start, man? Because especially Jerry's got this at least his perception that he's removed from the masses and from, because he's not in the typical places that you will find most celebrities.
Common denominator is art. You know, we're both writers and we're both artists, and he was into it. He liked the music, you know, and he liked the music, he liked what I had to say, and it was very easy. It was very simple. Yes from him.
No, but you got his number. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, I met him 6 or 7 years ago. Came to a show. He invited me to a show because I did a mixtape about nothing, and he liked it, and we just stayed close ever since then.
That's great. So one of the questions I got was, if you had to cast Seinfeld, the show, with NBA players, you want to play this game? Can you name NBA players who remind you of each character on Seinfeld?
I would say Draymond Green would be Kramer, because he doesn't care. I would say LeBron would be Jerry because he's the star. I would say maybe Chris Paul would be George because he's like Jerry's little buddy, and he's always up to something.
We can skip a lane.
Yeah,
I ain't got no lane, dog.
I don't got no lane right now.
All right, so of the coaches, who would be George Costanza's dad, Frank Costanza?
Gruden. I'm not Gruden. Van Gundy. Stan Van Gundy. He always looks like he's having like a bad day.
Oh man, yeah, he definitely gonna have a Festivus for the rest of us. So growing up, were you always a Wizards fan or Bullets fan back then, or were you
when you're a kid, you're always a homer. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're always a homer. You know, then I started learning more about the game and, you know, having like, you know, I liked Khalid El-Amin when I was young. Like, I just liked how he didn't fit the mold of a typical point guard, and he still got the job done. You know, I went through a Sean Kemp phase where I just wanted to see all dunks 24/7. Everybody was an Iverson fan if you from D.C. because he played at Georgetown. Everybody, you know, Iverson was a part of all of our childhoods. You know, and I just kind of been spotty. I just had, you know, I had my favorite players, but I always supported the Bullets and Wizards.
That's what's up. You know, I did an interview with Rod Strickland last week, and I don't think people remember when he played for the Bullets.
He led the league in assists.
Yeah, I mean, he was killing, and not just regular assists.
Yeah,
he was
working.
He was putting some up.
He ain't had much help either, so he was managing it by himself. He had Calvert Chaney and Chris Whitney on his team.
He got into the playoffs though. They got to the playoffs and they got swept by the Bulls, but still, that's an accomplishment. So today, in today's NBA, John Wall, Bradley Beal, what do you think the ceiling is for this team?
Possibilities are endless. There's some things we got to tie up in the offseason and make right. But right now, I think we can be competitive with any team in the NBA. We just got to find the mojo that we had in the first half of the season.
That's what's up. So one of the other questions I got here was from a guy named Grand Prot. He wants to know, he loves the go-go influence sound and all UCB produced tape in your future? ?
Maybe not UCB, but I'm definitely a go-go project. It's something that I have in mind. Absolutely.
So as a New York guy, I'm a New York guy. Explain to me go-go, because I never really got it. We go down to D.C. and the DJ be playing regular music, and then it's switch to the go-go music.
It's really not a way to explain it. It's really just like it's like swing music with a heavy percussion, call and response. You know, they do a lot of covers. It's more just energy based. Like, you know, it's a lot of the songs come on the whim. You know, it's freestyle a lot. But I would say like it's just percussion is the star player in go-go music.
Do you think it's always going to be a regional sound, or can it expand to the rest of the country?
Well, we're gonna find out soon when I try this go-go album. We're definitely gonna try it. I hope not, because you know what, my city is very rich in culture, and go-go is a cornerstone of our culture back home.
All right. Do you hoop?
A little bit.
All right.
I'm out of shape now.
Compare your game to somebody in the NBA. I'm not saying that you're as good as them, but that's the style you play.
Man. I don't know. I dribble a lot. I dribble the air out the ball sometimes. I don't know, man. Probably. I don't drive, so maybe like Reggie Miller, just sit on the perimeter and just wait for the ball.
So
JJ Redick.
Everything around the line or on the 3-point line.
Yeah, I don't drive, man. And they don't end well when I drive.
You hoop with other rappers?
Yeah, I mean sometimes I hoop with J. Cole a couple times. He's good, and you know, a lot of rappers don't have an athletic bone in their body though.
Right. That's because my next question was, if you could rank hooping rappers, rank them for me.
I would say Stalley, J. Cole, and Trinidad James. Probably the three.
Trinidad James can hoop?
Yeah, Trinidad James can hoop. He physical. He plays physical.
That'll be the headline for this interview. I didn't see that one coming, man.
Yeah, no, Trinidad James can hoop for real.
Wow. All right. So opposite, hoopers who can rap, because you know they all think they can.
Kevin Durant got a little flow. Yeah, KD got a little flow. Joe Smith, I mean, he retired, but
Joe Beast.
He used to have a little flow with him.
Joe Beast.
I ain't really heard much. Damian Lillard, he can rap. Damian Lillard can rap. He good. Well,
I heard him on.
Pretty much it though.
He was with Sway, I think. He freestyled for him. And he did the 5 Fingers of Death with Sway, and he was pretty good.
Yeah, they respect the culture, and he got a little flow.
This is one that I've heard of, but I've never heard him rap. But like the rumor is, this dude is really good. Elton Brand, you ever heard that one?
Nah, I ain't heard that, but he is from like Brooklyn or something. So when you from Brooklyn, you can play basketball and rap. It's just like in your blood.
Either you got a wicked jump shot or something else that I ain't gonna say on air.
Oh yeah, one of the two.
One of the two. All right, so let's talk about your album real quick. Talk about the creative process into making an album about nothing.
Well, I mean, you know, Jerry just laid the foundation for a lot of the songs that I did, and you know, we just had good conversation, just like a couple of friends, and then I just used a lot of the things that he said in conversation as a method of development of writing like a thesis about everything that he said, you know, making a statement, elaborating on everything that was said, you know, so. That's how pretty much how the album came out.
Here's a question I got to ask, because I always get asked this question. I'm a big Seinfeld fan as well. But whenever, particularly when I'm with my less than urban compatriots, let me put it that way, they're always shocked. They say, "You're black and you like Seinfeld? No way." Why do you think there's that perception that black people don't like Seinfeld?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of black people like Seinfeld, but I think it's because there really wasn't that many black characters highlighted on the show, you know. And I mean, I think if you're thinking small-minded, you know, maybe that might be offensive to some people. I don't know, but there's tons of black shows that there's no white people. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I don't look at it like that. I'm a big fan of the writing, like Larry David and Jerry do, and you know, I'm just a big fan of like their humor and the way they meticulously put together a story.
Absolutely. Favorite Seinfeld episode?
Soup Nazi, probably.
Soup Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was the one where they forget where they park.
I was just thinking about that episode too. Yeah, that was a good one.
I still use that line whenever I go, because I could get uromycetitis and die.
Uromycetitis.
That's the real right there. Larry David, you're a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan as well, I take it.
Absolutely. Not as much as Seinfeld, but I'm definitely having an affinity for that show.
Why not as much as Seinfeld?
I mean, you know, it's just the time period and the characters you just grow to love, and you know, It just wasn't the same. But you know, obviously I'm a big fan of Curb. It just wasn't, you know, Seinfeld. Them characters was one of a kind.
That's what's up. Well, the album is The Album About Nothing.
Yes, sir.
The guest is Wale. Check out his album in stores now.
On iTunes, on Google Play, on Amazon, on Spotify, it's everywhere.
There you go. On Tidal?
I believe so.
We'll get that check from Tidal. They're charging $20 a month. Good Lord.
They trying to get that billion quick.
Yeah, man. more power to them. Thanks a lot, Wale.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks to Wale and Amin for that interview. That'll do it for us here for this week on the NBA Lockdown Podcast. Great stuff as always, brother. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, George. You too.
You've been listening to the NBA Lockdown Podcast. Enjoy the games this weekend. For Israel Gutierrez, I'm George Sedano. Take care.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.